The November 5th, oh, I'm sorry. Are we ready? Okay. All right, thank you. Welcome to the November 5th, 2019 regular board meeting of Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. Meeting is hereby called to order. Will you please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Andrews.
Present.
Vice President Mason.
Present.
Director Mitchell.
Present.
Director Lassane.
Present.
Director Nankar.
Present.
Student Representative Tran.
Present.
Student Representative Hussein.
Present. Thank you. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Saltzman, will you please introduce this afternoon's agenda?
Thank you and good evening. Tonight's agenda contains a segment for recognitions, the superintendent's report, 7 for public comments, 7 for routine business, 7 for strategic progress monitoring, 7 for new business, upcoming agenda items, and an executive session. Since publishing the agenda, the following changes have been made. Item 6.01, the superintendent's report was added. Item 13.02, approval of resolution 1220 to support the passage of capital bond proposition number 1. The resolution was updated to include revisions proposed by legal counsel that does not affect the primary intent of the resolution, and the presentation was revised to correct clerical errors. Item 4.02, special meeting November 7th, 2019, was updated to reflect the scheduled meeting date. The board may elect to change the order of business by majority of the vote of the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saltzman. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mitchell to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. We will move on to section 5.0, recognition. This afternoon, we are celebrating the 5th year of our summer reading program.
Yes, the 5th year of our summer reading program. Summer seems like a distant memory, doesn't it? But we're here, the data is in, and we're here to celebrate the top performers in our 2019 summer reading program. As you know, the summer reading program is an attempt to mitigate the summer slide and to keep literacy skills in tip-top shape throughout the year. This past summer, 6,133 students participated in the program. We had 1,816 reading 3 or more books, which earned them recognition to have their names in the Everett Herald and then incentives delivered to their school. The 4 students we're recognizing tonight had an extraordinary turnout. You won't believe the number of books they read. You really won't believe the number of books they read. And they had the accelerated reader program map out the number of points they earned relative to how well they understood the books. This afternoon, we are recognizing the top 4 performers introduced by their principals. And I'm going to invite up Marty Shevland, if she's here, to introduce our first award winner. And just a little bit of housekeeping, and I'm going to scoot this up too. You know it's a good meeting when you have the little stool here because we've got young people in the house and we're going to celebrate. So what we're going to do is come on up, and this is Datika, and she is going to say a little bit about why summer reading is important to her. Oh my gosh. Yes, you are shocked at the number of books that she's read. Yes, and points earned. And then when we're done, we're going to have the students just line up over here, and we're going to take a picture at the end.
Did you need us here? Oh.
Could you introduce?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Datika Tamburay, and she is in 5th grade in Mrs. Studd's class. Her teacher is also right over here, and we're so proud of her. I was just so impressed. She read 124 books for 403.8 AR points. So that is outstanding. And she has written out an explanation as to why she reads over the summer and why it was important for her. So go ahead.
I think that the summer reading program is a great way to read over the summer and also keep yourself entertained or busy. Also, when you take an AR test, you remember the book that you read more clearly.
Great, good job.
Now we'll have Tony Wentworth come up and introduce his students. Tony's the principal of Whittier.
So I just want to introduce Alanis Borello, and she's a fifth grader at Whittier. She read, 93 books for 83.9 AR points. And I was just talking to her grandparents a little earlier, and just saying how impressive that is, because once you get into the summertime, you can often relax and kind of slide away into summer activities. Oh, thank you, Dr. Scott. And so that's what's impressive, to have the focus and drive to keep reading and continuing to improve.
To me, summer reading was a fun way to spend time and relax. Another thing I love about reading is you can imagine the characters and what they look like. Instead of seeing them on TV, you can imagine them.
You can come on up. Next, we're going to have Bruce Rhodes introduce his student from Cedarwood Elementary. Principal Rhodes.
So Rishi Sumaran is one of our best students. He's in our second grade high caps classroom, and we're really proud of him. He read 250 books. That is amazing. I think I read about 30. That's amazing. 177 points, and I want him to share why reading has been really important for him for the summer reading.
I think reading is important because it helps you get a better mindset, learn new lessons, and get better at reading and comprehension.
And last but not least, we have Principal Kevin Allen from Eisenhower Middle School with his award winner, Nathan Kim.
It is my pleasure to introduce Nathan. He read 46 books for 226 points. He's accompanied today by his mother, Ashley, and father, Stephen Kim, and he's going to share a little bit about why summer reading is so important.
Hello, my name is Nathan Kim. I'm from Eisenhower Middle School. Personally, I really enjoy summer reading, mainly because it has the ability to take my mind off of daily bustle. I like the fact that I get to explore a diverse genre of books that I couldn't during the school year. The summer reading challenge is one of the best ways to keep me entertained. I'm the only sibling, so I don't have anyone to talk to, and I don't like my parents being bothered. So I usually read fantasy books to make my imagination run wild. Speaking of genres, I also like realistic fiction. I find pleasure in seeing the characters in the books face real-life problems and figure out a wise strategy to solve the problem. This genre really helps me work out situations in reality. When I don't know an answer to something, my parents always told me to read a nonfiction book, which I don't really like that much. Well, even though I don't like nonfiction, it really helped me learn about many facts around the world about me and some fun facts I didn't really know about. So, in addition, reading books really helped me improve my grammar a lot. When I started elementary school, I became a quick learner by reading lots of books out loud to myself. This really made it easier to learn how to write as well. To the people who don't really read books often, I recommend trying to explore different genres and hopefully find yourself deep into the fun of reading. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do a picture. I just wanted to, not because I want to stand on this podium, but I kind of do actually. We're looking forward to having over 1,800 students, as I mentioned, listed in the Herald. It's a big Everett Public Schools celebration to have a full-page ad on two pages come out in very tiny print. But this is a big deal, you guys. You are the top 4 award winners, and we want to congratulate you. So we're going to take your picture right up front, and if we can invite the board members as well.
And their families. Please have their families come too.
Why not? There's teachers.
teachers and
Teachers, principals, come on.
everybody that loves these
Everybody,
kids,
come on.
supports these kids.
Come on.
We do it, we just stand right about here. Yeah.
Big book.
Okay, you guys are in front, so you move up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you're sure.
I guess some of the dads want to take pictures. Take it off there.
Okay, can everybody see my camera? This is amazing. Okay, I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. Everyone smile.
Yeah,
Oh, you
she's
gotta
actually better with cameras. She's almost a professional.
Yes. We'll share this with the whole families. Okay, there, all the parents are in. All right, 1, 2, 3. All done. And we are good. Oh, wait.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I'm going on this one too. You gotta look at me. All right. Awesome.
You know, that's, I do well, great 46 pages.
Yeah, exactly.
240 bucks. My goodness.
Oh my God.
I know. I can only imagine.
Oh, yes.
Don't make me laugh.
Those are some amazing students. I can't even comprehend that many books. So we will move on to section 6.0, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, and again, congratulations to those students, teachers, and principals for the readers that they are, and I'm motivated to read a book tonight when I get home, and great work. First, on October 22nd, Henry M. Jackson High School freshman Katarina Vanguard initiated a pledge drive encouraging students to pledge not to vape. And we talk about how great student leaders are, what a great example. Heatherwood students noticed and asked for her assistance from Katarina to help get a pledge drive started at their school. Vaping information nights are scheduled, and those dates are on our Everett Public School homepage. I want to thank the input from the communications department and from our board of director, Ms. Mason, who encouraged me also to share that to all our principals, because we're going to have those information meetings, and we're one of the first districts to do that, and I salute everybody for that. Akila Rashawn Jackson, 11th grader from Jackson High School, is one of 24 students selected from across the United States to join Youth Collaboratory 07474. This is a year-long program helping to empower and connect a rising generation of civic leaders and doers. Akila will be compiling a power project in the community to increase awareness of how powerful functions in society and how people can access power. Congratulations on that. Just a few weeks ago, the Puget Sound Festival of Bands extravaganza was hosted for the 32nd year by the Cascade High School Marching Band and Color Guard. Over 3,500 high school students from 15 marching bands and color guards across the state participate here at Everett Memorial Stadium. And what a wonderful evening. I want to thank those folks that came out to support. What a wonderful event and wonderful for our city of Everett. I had the pleasure of meeting with the Cascade High student government last week to talk about their hopes and plans for the school year, and I'll be meeting with the Jackson and Everett student government coming up very shortly. Everett Public Schools is one of 81 districts across the country to be recognized as a National Board Accomplished District. We encourage our teachers to get nationally board certified and are proud of the 189 who currently are certified. I want to thank the taxpayers' support from the 2016 bond, we're excited to share that a brand-new school, Tambark Elementary School, will have its dedication November 14th at 6:30 p.m. Student-led tours. T-shirt winners will be announced and refreshments will be served. So see our beautiful school that is opening up in our wonderful district, and also the great job of Regional Superintendent Larry Fleckenstein, who's been working closely with Miss Celia over there to make sure that that school is ready and up and running, and it certainly has been. Congratulations. Although it's not the only indicator to show whether a student is prepared for life beyond high school, but the graduation rate is a powerful tool to measure how well the K-12 system is meeting the needs of our students. We are proud of our graduation rates as they continue to climb. 95.9%. Salutes to everybody in the K-12 system. I want to talk to you about instructional reviews. We are very excited to have had 4 great instructional reviews focused on student learning. Monroe, Emerson, Evergreen, and Eisenhower. Schools showcasing improvement and collaboration at its fullest moment. Great to see enthusiastic teachers and students learning together, and coming soon to our next board meeting will be a process on the instructional review so the public can understand that as well. Again, I want to thank everybody. I want to remind everybody it's your right to vote for democracy, and tonight is the election night. And again, thank you to our community and staff for the great work that we've been doing.
Thank you, Dr. Saltzman. We'll move on to board comments. This is an opportunity for directors and student representatives to share activities that relate to their board service. We have not had a meeting since October 8th, so people may have a lot to share, but recognizing we have a rather lengthy agenda tonight, let's try to keep within like a 3-minute time period per board member, please. And I will start directly on my left with Dr. Mason, Director Mason.
That would be my husband.
Yeah.
Yes, so it has been a while since we last met, so I've had an opportunity to do quite a few really fun things, starting with iReady training at Madison Elementary. I just want to thank Dr. Saltzman for encouraging directors to get out and learn a little bit more about the systems that we use in our schools and the curriculum, and that was certainly a real eye-opening experience. And then I attended that night the Everett High School and Beyond night, which I was just so impressed with the number of colleges there talking to students, the number of middle school students there looking at next steps. It was really impressive, and they put it in the gym this year, which it just, I think, made for a slightly better experience. But just, I feel like the quality every year we do this just keeps going up. And yeah, it was great. Public officials reception, that was an opportunity to talk with some of the other folks in elected positions and business leaders around our county. Always a good thing to do, spread the good news that's happening in the district. North Middle School open house, showcasing our beautiful new school. Fun to see it in completed state, or almost completed state. We need a parking lot still. And then I got to experience a whole week of Everett High homecoming, because my student is a part of the leadership team, and I'm just so blown away with, excuse me, how much work these students do to put on the event and draw, really give thought to how to draw other students into the process and be a part of the spirit and the week. And it was just really fun to watch unfold. And and then just a couple opportunities to meet with community members about the bond and start having those conversations and letting people know what's coming down the pipe and why we're running this bond. And that's been a great experience as well. So that's it. Yeah, we need to condense the time between meetings. So no, we don't actually. I take that back. Never mind.
Take that back.
Thank you very much. Director Mitchell?
Well, I did confirm with Mrs. Judd that there are some outliers out there that did read over the summer, but as seniors went, do I have to fill out that form? So my daughter did read about 4 books, mostly in library books, and you see at the breakfast table reading. Even this week she's still reading, so it's fabulous. I think that program is fabulous, and I believe I read at least 6 books I do not have the time to read 214, but what an achievement. I also am thankful for Mr. Fleckenstein taking me to Forest View, and I was able to see iReady in the works, as well as Reach. And so in talking to the kids about the different programs, and I did ask one little first grade girl as I was watching her do her quiz, does this help you feel smarter? And she goes, yes. And so that's just, I mean, that's just why we do this, is so that they can be better of themselves. Also, right after that, I went to the Jackson High School's College Blitz, walked in, just wanted to see how they were doing it. I had volunteered before through the foundation or the Rotary at Cascades, and it is just such a great day. So Jackson's been doing it about 3 years now. Cascades has been longer than that. There were a few college students there. They reported last night there were about 200 students that had walked through in about a half-day event, where the counselors were all available, and some teachers and staff. They all were told to bring their one-to-one devices, and helping them with their essays and their applications and FAFSA, and talking to a few kids who were struggling with where to start, and kids that I know and kids that I don't know. And it's kind of fun to still be called Becca's mom when I walk into a school. So that was really cool. And then Adam's family will be here tonight as a Jackson representative, kind of. And I just was so impressed when we brought the Footloose kids last year that hopefully the Jackson kids will do well tonight. And then I saw that Cascade had posted their musical for the winter, and so that hopefully we can bring those kids in and just really show what these kids are capable of. And then tomorrow night at Jackson is the principal's tea. And I did talk to Mr. Peters about the fact I'm going as a parent, but I'm also going to have my hat on as a board member if there are any comments about the bond or boundaries for those high school students, just so that I can know what the community is saying if anything is said. But I did tell Dave that it is his meeting, and I'm just there to listen just in case anything comes up. But it was sort of nice to have this little break, but I did miss you all, so thank you.
Thank you. Director Lassane? I can truly say that it's been a long time since the 8th of October.
It has.
And it's really amazing. So much stuff has taken place between that day. And everybody, okay. One thing I do want to say, I did happen to have the opportunity to go to Jackson High School and beyond. And I truly am impressed by some of the colleges that are there. One small college was there that I knew of in Southern California, a small women's college, Scripps. And it was really funny when the representative was there. A parent happened to come up and wanted to know about it. And I was able to provide something that I knew of the school, which was really quite a bit compared to what the representative started, because I knew people who went to the school, so it was really quite nice. And we are only getting better and better with that. I mean, more and more colleges are coming in, and that's good because it offers our students other opportunities and greater opportunities to expand where they're going, not just look at certain schools that come, but some of the schools that are private liberal arts colleges and smaller colleges for some kids who don't like the larger atmosphere schools. So that's a good thing. One thing also that happened on the 15th of October, and I would like to thank Dr. Salzman for keeping me in the dark. I was able to find out that I was the recipient of the opportunity to go down to the Dominican Republic to help build a school through Life Touch mission work. Life Touch, as you may know, are the people who take our students' photography and pictures. And every year they come into different schools, and they take our kids' pictures and they take the cards do the cards for their ASB cards. And that's really quite great, but they have other things they do. And one of the things they do is go to other parts of the world, the globe, and they help build schools in impoverished neighborhoods. So for the last 7 years, I've always put my Everett Public School business card in the fishbowl. and the 8th year was a charm. I was able to win the opportunity to go down there and help build a school. And the school has been in construction since 2012, but every year they add on to the school. So this year, starting in January, they're going to be adding on a library, a computer lab, and an infirmary. And my hope is that I will not be going, but that Everett Public Schools will be going. And hopefully we'll be taking with us some library books from each of the school districts. Each of the schools, maybe 2 books from each schools with something written in it so that we can establish a connection between Everett Public Schools and the Dominican Republic schools down there, so that hopefully through the internet, Skype, Facebook, whatever, we can keep that dialogue going, and that they can learn something about our kids up here, and we can learn something about their kids down there. So in the future, you'll be hearing more about it. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful being able to go. But again, I'm not going. Y'all are going. And so we're going to help build a school and hopefully establish relationships between our students here and their students down there. So I'm looking forward to that. So stay tuned. I'll bring back lots of pictures so that we can show it to everybody here and see what you guys went and did down there.
Nice. Congratulations, ma'am, on that one. My course on iReady is tomorrow with Dr. Matthews, and I'm looking forward to that. And I think it was really impressive just hearing about the kids that came up with their reading programs and the reading achievements, given the times that we live in terms of how we are so engrossed in our little phones and tablets that nobody really spends too much time on the books. And the fact that they have 246, that seems just crazy. But it was a good reminder to get on my kids' case a little bit. And also reminded, yesterday was also, I think, I attended the parent-teacher meeting at the Heatherwood School, and it was an interesting format. This year was done a little differently in the gym. And for me, it worked. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what the feedback is, both from the parents as well as the teachers' side, to see whether that was more effective or if they lost some opportunities there. But overall, I just thought just in the past couple of weeks or so, there's just so much good news about our district in the papers, on social media and such, and really proud to represent our district and proud of our kids and our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Representative Trent?
It feels like forever since the last board meeting, but I've been very busy with college applications, and I got to attend College Application Day. It was just a full day event in our library, and we had UW representatives, Wazoo representatives, and Central Washington University representatives, and it was a great way for many students of different backgrounds to feel like college is not too stressful and it's accessible to everyone, no matter your financial situation or your academic background. And so that was very encouraging for not just me, but I think many of my peers. Yes, as Director Nankar was saying, the books, that was great for many of the students. I think I read about 7 books. Reading has been a strong part of me since I was in elementary school with the language barrier, since I grew up speaking Japanese. And so reading really helped me catch up to my peers with English. So that's great to see a lot of the students thriving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Everett High got like a kickoff assembly for their food drive for Thanksgiving. And yeah, so if you see any kids standing outside Safeway, QFC, and Albertsons, those are from Everett. You should definitely donate. Just like making sure that families have like food during Thanksgiving. It's a lot of work, and we have students going in and out of school, like trying to deliver food during the school day to families. And it's just like a fun event that the school puts on, and it's also competition. So like the class that gets like the most like money and cans gets like a prize or whatever. So everyone's kind of like butting heads right now, but after Thanksgiving that'll end. And also there was an auction, the YMCA auction that happened on the 11th of October, I'm pretty sure. But I got to do a testimony basically telling everyone how impactful the Y was to me, and I worked there, so like it's pretty impactful that a lot of my family goes there, so we just enjoy going to the Y. And also this Friday in the morning at 6:00 a.m. we're going to do a pep rally at Everett High, and it's to send our cross country runners to state. Because one of them made it to state. And it's going to be at 6:00, so we're going to try to get everyone there at 6:00 in the morning, which is going to be pretty tough, but I think we got it.
Thank you. And I'm proud to say the cross-country runner who made it is my great niece, I don't know, my relative, yeah. I'm really, yeah. So very proud of her, yes. I also had an iReady session with Dr. Matthews. Thank you very much. And thank you to Dr. Salzmans for suggesting board members understand that better. I've sat through many saucers and heard about it, and it was so much more meaningful to be able to see it, understand how it works. It's an amazing program. And then to be able to see it actually in operation in the classroom was very, very helpful and impressive how the students are so self-motivated to do it and stay on task and interactive and everything. Yeah, it was very informative, so thank you. I will just quickly say, just wanted to recognize that public education is a part of a larger village, and I wanted to mention, we have not yet approved it, but on the consent agenda is a grant from Mediguin Foundation for helping our students learn CPR and AED skills, and I just find that really helpful and useful and it's wonderful to know that our students are getting trained in something that can be a life-saving aspect for the entire community. And one last thing is every day, well, almost every day, when I'm returning from my morning workout, I drive by Heatherwood Middle School, and the Mill Creek Police have been wonderful about being out there monitoring the speeds of cars, and it has a very impactful, big impact on making people slow down to 20 miles per hour through the school zones. And so it's nice to see that focus on behalf of Mill Creek Police, and our students are all safely getting to school. And we are finished. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And we'll move on to audience comments. The school board sets aside time during each regular board meeting to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and want to hear and understand the perspectives you bring to the table. We do have a request for public comment this evening from Lizzie Sebring. Okay. On behalf of the board, I welcome you. Our school board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same spirit. I will share how this portion of the meeting is conducted. You can come to the podium, and all comments are recorded and made available for future viewing. The public comment time is for the board to listen to what you have to say. It's not a time for debate or discussion. So you are, There are 3 lights. The green light signifies the start of your 3 minutes. Yellow is a 30-second warning, and red is expiration of your time. You are a parent, guardian of a student at Monroe, and employee of the district, and tonight you're speaking on behalf of the Washington State PTA Council?
Yeah, on the Everett PTSA Council, yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. So my name is Lizzie Sebring, and I'm the Advocacy Chair for Everett PTSA Council. We are part of one of the largest grassroots advocacy organizations in the country. In Washington State, we have over 128,000 members who all share the vision of making every child's potential a reality. Advocacy is about speaking for an idea, cause, or policy, and it is important for PTA to be a voice for all children. One of the ways we do that is by having a legislative platform that centers around the broad categories of health, safety, well-being, and education of children and youth. Once a year, we gather together to educate, caucus, and debate issues, resolutions, and principles over 2 days in October at our Legislative Assembly, which we just did not this immediate past weekend, but the weekend before. All of the proposed issues, resolutions, and principles come from our membership or the Washington State PTA Board of Directors. This year, we adopted 1 new legislative issue, 4 new resolutions, 15 amended resolutions, and 1 new principle. Our issues are short-term, lasting 2 years. These are voted on and prioritized, where the top 5 issues are the primary focus when we advocate in Olympia as well as locally. All of the other issues that are adopted are considered also supported issues. Our top 5 issues are social emotional learning, school construction in simple majority for bonds, preventing gun violence, strategies to address the teacher shortage, and strategic K-12 investments to close gaps. Our newest legislative issue is equitable identification of highly capable students. This will be added as an also supported issue to our current platform. Our resolutions are formal positions that are permanent once they have been adopted. So the 4 new resolutions that we just adopted are gun violence prevention and safety for students and school staff, vital impact of membership on PTA sustainability, equitable education opportunities to close gaps across the achievement spectrum, and mission-focused fundraising. Our principles are permanent conceptual policy objectives that align with the association's missions. So the one that we just adopted is on family and community engagement. By passing this principle, we will be working to identify, initiate, educate, and support policies that focus on the family, school, community partnerships. I know that I just shared a lot of information with you, so I encourage you to visit Washington State PTA's website to find out more about these topics and to see what we're doing in Washington State PTA. Lastly, I wouldn't be a good advocacy chair if I didn't end by reminding people to vote and get their ballots dropped off by 8 p.m. tonight or in a mailbox before the last collection time. Voting is one of the simplest ways you can advocate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your advocacy on behalf of our students. We will move on to section 9.0, consent agenda. Dr. Salzman, will you please present an introduction?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts and grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes it includes items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives the directors time to ask staff questions or to consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of the consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding these items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as published for board approval.
Thank you. A motion to approve the consent agenda as presented is in order.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Nonkar to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in the new business section? Hearing no request, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries, and consent agenda is approved. Next on our agenda is section 10.0, strategic progress monitoring. This evening, we will hear from Dr. Woods on post-secondary enrollment patterns.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here today. It was really heartening to hear the board comments earlier talking about, well, first of all, Dr. Salzman recognized the increased graduation rate, and then board members talked about some of the activities that we do, not only to get those high graduation rates, but then to move beyond that to post-secondary enrollment and success. So whether it's the College Blitz, college application days, the high school and beyond night, and all of those things go together, but not just that, but the other things you mentioned, iReady, PTSA, it's all of it together. It's not just happening at the high school. And we really want to talk about those post-secondary enrollment patterns. Because our goal is not just that students graduate, but that they graduate college and career ready, and with a post-secondary transition plan that goes beyond that. So we know that post-secondary does not always mean college, either a 2-year or 4-year, but today that's the focus. Our purpose is to ensure that students meet their post-secondary goal. And so tonight, I'll be talking to you about the enrollment patterns from previous classes, those that we have data from. Review the components of high school and beyond planning that gets our students there. Report FAFSA completion rates and plans for post-secondary enrollment for last year's graduates. The data comes to us, much of it, from the Education Research and Data Center, which we abbreviate as ERDC. And this great resource hasn't really updated their data since you last heard from Dr. Willard in May of 2018, because they've been focusing on updating their dashboard to create a more dynamic and useful tool for us. So I'm anxious to see them update the data for us, but you will see some new looks at it. And then Naviance, the tool that we use for the high school and beyond planning and to track alumni progress, also has a new and more dynamic dashboard to look at current student progress and alumni outcomes. So although we know that college is not the only path after high school, 78 to 92% of each of our groups of students who were surveyed, 9th through 12th graders, indicated that they do have college aspirations, and the vast majority of them wanted 4-year college eventually, and many of them advanced degrees. The data that I will be presenting show progress towards achieving these aspirations, and we'll also see some room for growth. Here you see some patterns of enrollment from the classes going from class of 2005 to 2016, and again, that's the latest data that we have. You have the top row is the data of their enrollment in college, either 4-year, that's the blue line, or 2-year, the orange line, immediately after high school. The second line is, did they persist beyond the second year? So of the, for example, 39% of students in the class of 2000, or 34% of the students in the class of 2015, how many of them came back for a second year in that 4-year institution? And you can see there's a high degree of persistence in 4-year institutions, somewhat less persistence in the 2-year institutions, and then the highest degrees attained 8 years later. So of course that's really lagging data. That's going to be 2009 data. And then what does it mean for their income? So just taking a little bit closer look at one of those, and that is the 4-year enrollment pattern for students immediately after high school. And one of the things you see is that it was really relatively flat from 2005 to 2015, and then there was a bump. That was the first graduating class that had Naviance through their high school years, had that tool for college planning. There were many other things that happened right at that time. I think that may have been the first or second year of the college application day at Cascade High School, for example. So there were many things that happened, but that is one thing that we can track. Taking a deeper look at that same graduating class, the class of 2016, the last one for which we have comprehensive data, we can show patterns of enrollment disaggregated by gender, ethnicity, income, and grade point average. For this class that graduated just over 3 years ago, there are still gaps. There are gender gap, there's gaps with race and ethnicity, there's gaps with income. The biggest gap you see is with GPA. Students with a grade point average of 3.0 or higher are significantly more likely to enroll in college, particularly in a four-year institution. And grade point average continues to be a significant predictor, not only of college enrollment, but college success. The top half of this slide also comes from the ERDC. And so again, the latest data that we have is for 2016. But what it shows is statewide, each of those tiny little dots are school districts, and what percentage of them enroll in which institutions. And what you can see is that for four-year in 2016, Everett School District was above the state average. We had 39% of our students enroll in four-year institution, and statewide it was at 34%, slightly above in two-year institutions, and below in those not enrolling in either one of those. The highest post-secondary credential earned within 8 years, so the latest data we have on that is 2009. We were right at the state average. If we take a deeper dive into students enrolling and what courses they took, we can see that relatively few students who enter four-year institutions needed to take remedial courses in math or English or in both. For those enrolling in the two-year institutions, community and technical colleges, the number is higher. Note, however, the significant reduction, particularly in English, starting in 2014. We've developed a very strong partnership with Everett Community College and our local community colleges, and have collaboratively determined additional ways of identifying students who are determined to be college ready for college level course taking. So rather than only doing their AccuPlacer or whatever their placement test was, there were additional ways like the SBA, like grade point average in core courses, so that they could be determined to be ready to be at the college level. And so that decreased to 12% from 30% in 2006, so a very significant decrease. We don't see that same sort of decrease, however, in math. And we still have a significant number. We have a decrease from 54% to 43%, but still a pretty significant number of students who enroll in two-year programs have to take math remedial classes. This is of any student who may have claimed to be a student that went to Everett Public Schools, and it may be at any time that they entered. So what are we doing to make sure that they are ready for for college and post-secondary? As I noted earlier, we use the Naviance tool, and we've used it since 2013 and 14 for students for their high school and beyond planning. We especially chose this tool and continue to use it because of their strong alignment with our focus, including their college, career, and life readiness framework. Counselors, teachers, and others engage students at least 3 times per year in post-high school planning, starting with grade 6 and going through grade 11. And we have the College and Career Readiness Seminar in students' senior year. The high school and beyond requirement has been updated by the state, and our previous work has prepared as well for the changes. They've made it somewhat more rigorous, and Everett Public Schools was already really meeting many of those changes. So we had to make a little bit of change, but not very much. Some of what is new in the high school and beyond plan is that the Smarter Balanced Assessment must inform course planning. In addition, the 24 credit requirement includes personalized pathways, and students use these pathways. Students use their high school and beyond plan to determine what their pathways will be so that they're truly ready for their post-secondary plan. We've built this into our plan, as well as the requirement that families are involved in the planning. House Bill 1599, the one that made all these changes, also changed requirements for assessments that are now called graduation pathways. And there are now many ways to meet the requirements. And the first and most universally accessible way is the Smarter Balanced Assessment. As noted earlier, this is also a way to demonstrate college readiness for course taking at the post-secondary level. The high school and beyond plan, as we have designed it, has students include the Smarter Balanced Assessment as their first pathway to meeting the requirements. And then we have them identify additional pathways that match their interests and post-secondary goals. So we still give the Smarter Balanced Assessment in math and English language arts to every student in the 10th grade. One component of the high school and beyond plan is information on the FAFSA, the financial aid application, which is such an important gateway to college. Here we have data over the last 6 years of students in their senior year completing their FAFSA by the end of June. And we noted earlier, about 85% of our students have college aspirations. So we've made some growth, but we have continued work in this area as somewhere around 60% of students are completing their FAFSA by then. Our undocumented students don't complete the FAFSA, they complete the Washington application for student financial aid, the WAFSA. And that data is not included here. We can't collect those data. I can tell you that our schools right now have about 25%, and it varies from 21 to 29% of the students in the senior class have already completed their FAFSA. So that's a little bit earlier than we're seeing those numbers in previous years. The ERDC tells us about students who graduated in 2016 and before, but what about more recent graduates? Last spring, our graduates told us their plans, and nearly 80% of them said that they had plans to attend a 4-year or 2-year college. Compared to of the ones who actually did from the class of 2016, that was 69%. So if all of these students enroll in college, it would be a significant increase. Those who were not pursuing further education at this time gave us reasons and tell us that we need to grow in providing services to help students understand financial resources, for example. Counselors and others, this is through Navient, they can drill down in this information and bring together groups of students to provide more information. So of the 26 students who said it's a financial decision, they can pull those students and say, let's look at, did you complete the FAFSA, and let's look at some options for you. Or I need more information to make future choices. Okay, let's get you that information. So counselors can pull that and pull groups of students together. How are we preparing students? We're doing a better job in helping them to select courses and explore options. And these data from students show that we can improve by helping them prepare job applications, for example, college applications, and finding financial aid, which is why you're seeing those college application days and the high school and beyond nights where we had students actually bring in the materials to complete their FAFSA. One of the ways Navient is improving our ability to improve post-secondary outcomes is by tracking current students and providing information for follow-up. This slide shows the number of students who, as of 2 weeks ago, were in the process of applying for colleges. And again, this allows counselors to drill down and find students who need more assistance. So for next steps, we need to continue that high support for high school and beyond planning through Navient, grades 6 through 12, and also all of those other supports that we have around them. Support students in creating high school course plans that are aligned to their college and career interests. And we've refined the high school and beyond plan and are refining the lessons to align with the new state law and our enhanced tools and resources. And then finally, the biggest one for me is that area of growth that I see in improving that soft handoff with colleges, or as I think it was Dana Riley Black who said it, more like a sticky handoff. So I picture somebody at the college with gloves with stick-em on them, and we have stick-em on them, and we're not letting go of that kid until it's stuck on them. So strengthening that transition between high school and college to improve college enrollment, to improve college persistence, and to improve credential earning when they leave our system. And that's all. Do you have questions for me?
Directors have questions? Director Mason?
First of all, thank you for the information. It did actually spark quite a few questions, so I'm not going to ask a whole bunch, but just to start with, what are we talking about number of students? Is it between like 1,200 and 1,300 in a graduating class each year? Do we know, like when we're looking at slide 19?
Yeah, probably about
numbers?
1,300.
I like to think of it as like
12.
5, 4, 3 in
Yeah.
terms of the number of kids that graduate, but,
Yep.
okay, so.
And then almost 100 at Sequoia.
Yes,
Right?
thank you.
So about 1,300.
About 1,300. Okay, that helps kind of put more of a frame of reference around. And it's interesting because as Dr. Salzman got me thinking about, when you stop looking at percentages and you start looking at number of kids, 1% is 130 kids. So, those are big numbers.
That's,
I mean,
13.
13.
Yeah, 10%.
And so when you start adding up, 20% here and there, it's a lot of students, a lot of bodies. Okay, so 2 quick questions about the presentation. One, I don't think I totally understand, or do we understand or know the correlation of completing the FAFSA with post-secondary enrollment? So what is the connection between the two? I know that it provides the opportunity to pursue it for the finance piece of it, but do we track like the kids that actually complete it, and do they enroll, or do we make that connection, or can we? Is that data?
I believe we can, and that there have been many studies that show that the higher your completion rate of the FAFSA, it's a much higher enrollment rate in college. And what happens is students who might not have thought that college was accessible to them
Affordable,
financially,
yeah.
they get their financial aid letter and,
right,
maybe I can go.
Okay.
And so this is one way. But yes, there is a correlation between completion of the FAFSA.
Yeah, I knew there was a
and-
correlation. I
yeah.
was just wondering if the data
if we can track.
allows for that kind of tracking in our district or
haven't-
not. I'm not sure.
I'm sure we can.
Whether. And then the second one is we talk a lot about, just over the years, I hear a lot about the tools in Naviance, and what it offers our students. But do we also, there again, do we track like how often kids log in and how much time they spend and how that correlates to higher?
So we can pull data from Naviance, and we send it out to counselors, administrators, success coordinators, various people every week of who's logged in, how many times have they logged in, what are they doing. And then Naviance actually in their analytics can help us say, okay, the students who completed these tasks or these activities within Naviance, if they did these 7 things, were they more likely to go to college? So they have data
Right.
charts about that.
That's very fascinating. I sort of foresee maybe another iReady kind of Naviance kind of director training that I would like to suggest.
Excellent.
Just because I have a kid who's a senior and I know very little about it as a parent and really even as a director in terms of the capabilities of the information that is tracking through the system. So thank you for sharing
Yes,
that.
thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
All
Thanks.
And I just have a difficult question. I'm really sorry. I know we've had a lot of reliance on Naviance, and but this is what's hard for me. I really think for our kids it is that personal touch, and I do not know if it is a strength of every teacher doing the college and career readiness at that 3 times a year touch points, because I get complaints from my daughter about it not happening. But my daughter really did find out about colleges from a teacher. And that connection with that person, that adult in the school. And then when I was at Jackson, asking a young man who was filling out actually a Yale application, so I figured, okay, either aspirational or he's able to get there, which would still be aspirational for me. But said, how's it going? And he said, well, I just wish I knew what schools in the area were part of the Common App versus like, where could I really apply? And the fact that the University of Washington has their application, whatever that is called, and the Common App and Coalition application, yeah.
Working on it now.
and that, but it was, Ms. Pewitt, if I'm saying her name right, that for Naviance, she spoke to the senior parents last night, and then and said, sometimes we have to talk to these kids like 5 times so they get it. But it is, how are we communicating with the teens? How are we doing this? That I just don't believe it can all live in Naviance. And yes, we can get data out of it. Yes, we can do that. But 500 senior kids right now at Jackson, or 600 kids, whatever it is, there are not enough staff people, I think, to talk to each of them. But it's like it's that personal connection of, and I just struggle with how are we able to do that personal connection with each of our kids. So it's not an answer I expect tonight. It's a philosophical issue I think I have.
I'll address it just a little bit if I can. One of the things that I have tried to do is make sure that people are saying these aren't Naviance tasks. This is our high school and beyond plan, and Naviance is the tool. Just like iReady is not going to replace a teacher, Naviance does not replace a counselor or a teacher or somebody with that high personal touch to make sure that, and yes, we can definitely get better at it, and the data show that. But it's a tool that we use, and we can get some data out of it, and it's a good place to house that high school and beyond plan, but it absolutely does not replace the counselors, teachers, and every other staff member that touches those students and helps them achieve those college aspirations.
And that's just where I would like to hear more of those stories, I think. So thank you.
Well, I thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to hear some of this data. And I agree with you that there are so many tools out there that we can use. And I do believe also that the human touch is so vital for a lot of kids today that may not have the desire now to go to, or the wish to go to college. That human touch could bring in that desire to go and allow them to know that they're ready for it. Because so many kids don't believe they're ready for it, or it's for them, or they can do that. The big concern that I see out of the report is still the focus on the GPA. Those kids that have a GPA coming out of high school greater than 3.0 have a tendency to go to college more so than those who do not have a GPA at 3.0. And the big concern I have is, are we giving them the tools, the math and English tools? Because we talked about the preparation. I can tell you this, when I went to college, which was only a couple of years ago, math and English remedial courses was still the thing. No matter where you went to school, there were still kids that still had to take, physics 6A instead of 8A and had to take subject A, those courses in order to get to the first level freshman class of math or English. That's never going to go away until we all buckle down and say it's important, and we build that into each one of our kids. That's important that you learn early on what's necessary for every school. And Naviance provides that. It provides, you need to take these courses in order to go to this school. We need to do that much earlier. There's a tool that we can use, but what can we do to continue to provide the support to the kids today so that they realize a 3.0 or greater GPA allows them greater success into the college career, in that arena. And if you don't attain a 3.0, it's going to be harder for you to be successful. Not that it's impossible. There are a lot of kids that really scare the hell out of me when they go to college and become, the Bill Gateses and, technical whizzes. Or don't go to college, exactly. But the big thing is, what are we doing to ensure that we get the resources to kids to ensure that their GPA is greater than 3.0?
And that's a great question. There are some things, and as I know that you have often advocated for our AVID program. So AVID is one of those ways to take those students who maybe their GPA in their 7th or 8th grade year is a 2.5, and we pull them up and we say, no, this is what you do. And so there's a number of programs that we have. And you're right, the GPA of being over a 3.0, not only is it a predictor of college enrollment, but it's a predictor of college persistence and credential earning. And so getting those resources to the students to make sure they can do it, and really strong instruction and strong practices so that we can, so it's the village.
It's the village. It's the village. And we're seeing so many great things coming out, in the schools with summer school, with different targeted math classes in middle school so that they're prepared for high school. We're doing those things, and we need to continue. The data of what we have now going is important. We need to get that data so that we can do that. And I'm so glad that, we're at the point where we can track it with Naviance. Because I can tell you, my son was a 2011, and I bet you he did not tell anybody where he went to and what he was doing at that time. But I can tell you he's in law school now, so, but he's doing okay.
Yeah.
But still, that self-reporting needs to, is important too.
And we do, so ERDC pulls its data from the National Student Clearinghouse. And so we actually probably we probably knew where Owen was the whole time. It might have been a 2-year lag time before we officially knew it in data. But they do track that for many of the colleges and universities around the country.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo Director Mason's idea about perhaps getting a lesson on Naviance. So I think it definitely benefit me.
Thank you. Representative Tran?
I use Naviance a lot, and I think I'm part of a few of the statistics of the class of 2020. But on slide 12, where it says Naviance, I was wondering where that social emotional learning tool was. Like Director Mitchell said, the staff support for students, especially in these stressful times, are very much needed. And at Cascade, we've really been trying to advocate for more mental health support for all students, not just seniors, but just like, do students know where to go even for online support, was my question.
Yeah, and this is some of what's integrated. So what I know at Cascade this week, the counselors were going into 9th grade classes, and as part of the lesson that they were doing, they've been working in all of their lessons, they've been working in some mindfulness work in all of the lessons that they've been doing. So trying to get that, these are the and get that information. So it is housed within Naviance. It's a kind of a newer part of Naviance, and by the time you're a senior and you're applying to colleges, that's probably not the piece of Naviance that you're super focused on. But they're working on integrating those social emotional learning skills within all the other pieces, particularly through those 6th through 11th grade. Through this 6th through 11th grade in those lessons that they do several times a year. And then in the college and career readiness seminar, which is part of that high school and beyond planning, then again, the counselors are in doing some suicide prevention work and other kinds of things in that piece of it as well.
Okay.
Not as integrated as we'd like, but we're getting there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Well, I also use Naviance a lot, but we use it for like searching which college fits us the best, whether it's cost or private or public or like the size. But it's like, I feel like high school students, especially like sophomores and juniors, they use Naviance when they're told to use Naviance. So it's not like a choice or like, it's not something they want to like constantly do. And I feel like just making sure that students use it on like their own free time and let them use it like whenever they feel like they want to like search into schools. But I just feel like I like this moment that people are sophomores and juniors especially only use it when counselors told them to.
That's a great point, and what it makes me think of is doing some more education with our teachers. So, oh, you've got a little bit of time. Hey, why don't you pop into here? Or why don't you do this? Oh, I'm doing this lesson in science. Hey, what colleges might do this sort of thing? Hey, let's hop on and look a little bit and get more of the staff to see that value of it, and then students would also see the value.
Yeah.
I had a question on the remedial course taking graphs. The one at the very bottom, the category is any.
Mm-hmm.
Is any all other classes besides?
Yes, if they're taking,
math and-
they might be taking an English, a math, both English and math, or any English or math or any other course.
Course.
Like the total.
So you can,
All
yeah, it's the total of all classes. So you can see by far the majority is math.
Okay. Those numbers are, I guess when I look at our graduation rate, and then I look at the remedial percentages there, it causes me concern. And we have a lot of kids who are aspiring to go to college, and yet we have a good 30%, 31% who are not enrolling in anything. There's a bit of a disconnect there for me. As I know, I know I'm just making statements, there's no answers. But I am curious too about the 2-year sort of statistics. So we've got 30% enrolling in 2-year programs, and then 8 years later, there's only 12% who have actually gotten a 2-year degree. Am I looking at that correctly?
You are looking at it correctly. It's 30% from the class of 2016, and then the 12% refers to class of 2009. So they're two different cohorts, but yes. And you can see if you track back to 2009 on that top graph, you can see that it was in the 30s then as well. And so only 12% get an associate's degree. Now, it's possible that some of those, that not all, so if you look at 2009 in the 4-year, you were right around 33, 34%. And then if you go down to the bachelor's degree in 2009, you're at 34%. So some of those students who enrolled in a 2-year institution have actually earned their 4-year degree by the time 8 years goes by.
Right.
So it's not the whole difference, but there are a large number of students. So 31% don't enroll, 54% don't get any degree. There's a big number that don't get a degree.
Yeah, that is a big number. So our college, or high school and beyond nights, and unfortunately I wasn't able to attend any of them this time, but are they focusing on 2-year degree possibilities as well as Naviance? Does it kind of help guide students towards 2-year opportunities?
There are 2 years, yes, it does both, as well as, and the high school and beyond nights as well, 2-year, 4-year, and I think as the student representatives talked about, private, public, small liberal arts, large universities, and also community colleges, technical schools, apprenticeships, trades, all of those sorts of things. So at the high school and beyond night, you will also see more of a career focus as well. And for many, many students, most people graduating now, the road to that career is through post-secondary education.
Right.
But sometimes they need to see what the career is in order to get there.
And I know the numbers, they don't tell the whole story. I mean, I look at these and realize, like it took me 11 years to get through college, so I'd be in the no degree in the 8 years after graduation, but, it's not the the entire story, as I said. Well, thank you for a very interesting presentation. It's a challenge, to get our kids to continue their education. But it's also inspiring to see these numbers that like 91% of kids who go into four-year schools are sticking with it after a year, and and 1/3 are getting bachelors, and there's a lot of good news in here too, and a lot of opportunities. So if there are no more questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I understand that Jackson High students are here a little earlier than we were planning, but I'm thinking if they are ready to go, maybe it makes sense, and sorry for the promised kindergarten, we might delay that a little bit, if you don't mind. I think maybe it would make sense to bring the Jackson students in rather than have them stand around for another half an hour and have them.
Are they all here?
Yeah,
Are they all here?
I think they're here. There's a big group of kids out there. Last time that they performed up here, so do we want to stand up and move away like we did last time?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, you guys can just stand up here. That's what Everett High did, so.
We'll move.
Yeah,
You
you
can
guys
move.
get the stage.
We'll move.
Yeah.
Oh.
Room in the back too.
Do you guys want to spread out so that you're half in the back? So if you guys can divide in the center here.
You guys got to go front. All right, you guys go up front. Plan change happened.
Well, we need to let Marshall tell us what to do.
Okay, yeah.
Why am I trying to help?
No, it's okay. Yes, absolutely, sure. All right. So, thank you everyone for having us here tonight. We are the Jackson High School Theater Society, and we're putting on a production of The Addams Family later on this month. And we're so honored, and we feel so, happy to be able to give you a part of our show tonight. So we're going to perform 2 different numbers from our show, sort of as a preview of what you can see at our school in a couple of weeks. And if you listen during the number, you might even get more specific information about where, when, and all of that. So I'll turn it over to the kids.
The intoxicating smell of the graveyard. Once a year, as the last leaf of autumn falls, we gather beneath our family tree to honor the great cycle of life and death. Come, every member of our clan, living, dead, and undecided, and let us celebrate what it is to be an addict. Come to me, my luscious wife. So pale, eyes so black, and the rest went down to the best way up. Tell us what it is every Adam looks for. Darkness.
you're an adult, you need a moment to explode. Just pour your shit and wait till things get hot. When you're an adult, you have to really stir the pot. So give us shadows and give us color. A broken glass in a motel room. Something fun we can always zoom and give it all tonight.
And on this special night, we summon our beloved ancestors. And why do we do this?
Because living or dead, family is still family.
Yes! And how do we do this?
By dancing on their graves.
Yes! That's what we love it, Brother Fester!
Once chords under, down 6 feet under, we get together here.
Dead for forever, dead for whatever, called now to reappear. Every hour, sharp double after once in a
Old you're decaying here. What we're saying, time now to give us here.
Like that! Jackson High School's production of the Adams Family. November 1650. 22nd and 23rd. Doors open 6:30. Show starts 7 o'clock. Body up. Matinee shows every Saturday. Doors open 1:30. Show starts 2. Rigor mortis. We hope to see you. To witness the death, despair, crippling sorrow of the Adams family. Rigor mortis! Death rattle! The Jackson High School's production of the Adams family. 1560. 22nd.
When you're an adult, that's right. When you're an adult, you'll do late night out with the adults. You're an adult, it's one life. You're obligated to the clan. It's family first and family last, and family by and by. When you're an adult, it's evidence of life. When you're an adult, you do what adults do or die.
Can we all at least act normal?
Define normal.
Normal is an illusion, darling. What's normal for the spider is a calamity for the fly. Mother, please. Normal people, not like you, not like me. Can we be an average family? Normal night, that's all I want, that's all I need from you. Normal house without a mouse, but be a plant or two. You must admit we're not the people.
lost in the park, and then a pigeon dropped at my feet with an arrow in it. And I looked up, and there she was, Wednesday with a crossbow.
With a what?
A crossbow, you know?
You're telling me this girl walks around with a crossbow?
It's okay, Dad. She has a purpose.
Good! Good choice, son. All right, listen up. Here's what's gonna happen. We're going back to the hotel, and you and I are gonna have a little talk.
Be patient, dear. A father should support his son, and this is your only one.
But you did your mother's rhyming again. Let's go back to the hotel and then... No!
Normal night, not one poem, not one inspiring word, one normal scene. Tonight can't be altered. Please don't embarrass me for being a fool. Don't make a fuss about the house, about the food. Whoa, one normal night, never sleep. This one night is for me. Come on.
Come on!
Seems like a nice young man.
But they're not right for each other.
What do you mean they're not right for each other? Was Napoleon right for Joseph? Was Nausea right for Jeremy? Were the 80s right for the drum machine? Who's to say? Who's to say? Was Napoleon right for Soul Magazine? Was Matthew right for Bell? Was Matt right for Charlie Sheen? Who's to say?
Very much. Zach, do you want to tell them one more time when they
One more time.
There you go.
November 15th and 16th, 22nd and 23rd. Doors open 6:30. Show starts 11. And matinee shows on Saturdays at 2.
Doors open.
Doors open 1:30.
Awesome work. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Great job, everybody. Great job.
See the Footloose one because my friend was performing in it, but I didn't get to go.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
How big is your Everett?
Good stuff.
You get excused absence tomorrow, right?
Do you guys have like a stage? Or like where do you perform?
They were unbelievable, huh?
Auditorium.
Okay,
Or,
wow.
or in the little theater, depending on the
talent
how
is
big
amazing.
the production is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, great job. I'm just like,
Go for it. Yes, ma'am.
That was good.
All right, what a treat. Oh my gosh. Definitely get that on our calendars, right?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yep.
15, then 16.
That's 7.
So thank you for the little rearranging. Let's go ahead. Information discussion, unfinished business. We don't have any agenda items or any business under those agenda items. So let's move to 1301, Promise Kindergarten. And thank you for rearranging our little schedule.
Yes, of course, they said, we got to follow that.
Big schedule.
Little did I know when I agreed.
Well, and some of those used to be your kids.
Yes, they were amazing. All right, I can't sing, but Catherine said she can, so more to come. All right, so thank you very much. We're excited to share with you information regarding Promise Kindergarten, a new program, or transitional kindergarten, as we're going to call it. In early learning, our work aligns with the strategic and annual operating plan, specifically through collaborating and communicating with community partners to engage in common learning and shared practices, ensuring students are ready for kindergarten and meet or exceed standards by the end of kindergarten. We focus on several strategies to meet these goals, including ECAP, Play and Learn, Everett Ready, and targeted professional learning to align our practice. Tonight, we'll share another strategy to support student readiness. Dr. Matthews will share data to show the why behind implementing transitional kindergarten, and Ann Arnold will provide an overview, background, and timeline with next steps. In early learning, we have a goal of providing equitable access to high-quality early learning experiences in order to support kindergarten readiness and ultimately success in third grade. We know if students are at or above standard in third grade, they are much more likely to graduate on time and more likely to be successful in life. Now I'd like to transition to Dr. Matthews, who will spend a few minutes sharing data which provides background for why transitional kindergarten. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you. So very appropriate that we saw our college-going data, and now we're about to see our Washington Kindergarten Inventory of Developing Skills data. So this is our WAC kids, the percent of students meeting standard in the 6 elements that we test our kindergartners entering kindergarten. Now you can see those percentage of meeting standard, they range from 69.6% all the way up to 85.7%, which is fairly good. It does vary across the district. And tonight, I really want to focus on this connection between kindergarten and then the Smarter Balanced Assessment 4 years later in third grade, and the importance really of getting students off on a good start so that we can see them at standard later on. So the first group of students who participated in the Walk Kids assessment in 2005 took the Smarter Balanced Assessment in 2018 as third graders. And what you're seeing here on the screen is the percent meeting standard in third grade in ELA and math. ELA is in blue, math is in orange. Based on the number of the 6 domains that were met. So for example, of the students who met none out of the 6 domains in going into kindergarten, they passed the SBA 4 years later in grade 3 at a rate of 20% for ELA, 16.7% for math. Whereas students who met all 6 indicators met standard 4 years later at 85.1% for ELA and 84.2% for math. And you can see that that is really a graduated array there from 0 to 6, 6 standards met. When we dig a little deeper in to this data and we look at the gap between the percent meeting standard based on each of the individual domains, we see a pretty significant gap. So in the top left-hand corner, what we're seeing here is the students who did not meet the cognitive standard going into kindergarten, and the percent meeting standard in the SBA 4 years later in grade 3. So you can see 34.0 met standard in ELA, while 38.2 met standard in math. But of the students who met the cognitive standard in kindergarten, 77.6 met standard 4 years later in ELA and 77.2 in math. And that gap, nearly 40%, is very persistent. You can see it in the math and literacy and language. Really, the smallest gap is in the physical domain, and certainly that's a different kind of measure. Even in the social emotional, you see that same gap of nearly 30%. So digging just a little bit deeper then into how this varies by student demographic, what you're seeing here are the Smarter Balanced SBA index scores. So again, the students who did not meet the cognitive standard are on top. The students who did meet the cognitive standards are here just below. What is important to notice is it does not matter if students were low income or not low income. Those students who went into kindergarten having not met the cognitive standard, their average SBA score, index score in grade 3 was in level 2. And if they met that cognitive standard, it doesn't matter if they were low income or not low income, the SBA mean index score was in level 3, meaning meeting standard. And though we see a gap there between the low income students, for example, in ELA at 3.25 and the non-low income at 3.77, it's really important to notice that they're all still in level 3, meeting standard. And that's true whether we look at the math domain or the literacy domain, the language domain. Really the only difference, again, we see is in this physical domain that's really not seeing a big correlation in terms of later SBA scores, which makes sense, really. If we look at this data by ethnicity, so we're seeing the cognitive not met in kindergarten above the cognitive met. Doesn't matter if we're talking about ELA or math, and it does not matter what ethnicity we're talking about. If the student did not meet the cognitive domain going into kindergarten, their average SBA score 4 years later was in level 2, whereas regardless of ethnicity, if they met that cognitive standard going into kindergarten, their mean SBA scores were in level 3, which means meeting standard. And you can see that's true about our math domain here. You can see that it is true about language, about literacy, and I left out social, emotional, and physical, but it is the same. So I think that really what this establishes is the importance that we need to place on helping our students in our community come to kindergarten ready, and when they enter, regardless of demographic, understanding that if they're entering below standard, we're going to have to do things to catch them up. We're going to have interventions to do that.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for the opportunity to share this great opportunity for our students with you tonight. I know that this isn't quite as entertaining as the Addams Family, but honestly, it is just as exciting. And the opportunity that we have for our kids to help them be the ones that are here years later when they're in high school is really in this model, I believe. Dr. Matthews shared really conclusive data that clearly demonstrates that when students arrive in kindergarten with the skills and experiences they need to succeed, they meet benchmark in TS Gold or WAC Kids. They will also meet benchmark on the SB in third grade. There's also research out there that shares that 80 of the children who arrive at kindergarten, these aren't our students, but national research, of the students who arrive at kindergarten without the skills that they need for success, 85% of those children will not be benchmark at third grade, whatever the state assessment is. So we really have an opportunity here to change the educational trajectory of our students. So I wanted to share a little bit more about this particular model and this program and this opportunity. It is a model that is called an early entrance kindergarten program. It's been approved and funded by OSPI just in the last couple of months. And it really provides an equitable start for children without access to quality preschool. We've known for quite some time that we can serve children who are in poverty. They will qualify for Head Start. They will qualify for ECAP. So if we find them, which we work very hard at, we can get them into a quality preschool program. We also know that our middle-income families who can afford to pay tuition in faith-based preschools, community-based preschools, co-op preschools, all of those alternatives also get served because their families can support them. But we have a huge group of kids who are in the gap, and they're coming to kindergarten without those early learning experiences and without those skills they need. And what we're finding is that even the state's efforts to meet the needs of those children with preschool just aren't working because they can't qualify for the programs. So this program, the transitional kindergarten program, really goes after those kids. We would actively recruit them and bring them into programs that would be really change their trajectory. The focus for what we are calling transitional kindergarten is on basic academic and social skills, and the only thing that needs to be in place is that students demonstrate a need academically, socially, emotionally, financially, and they don't have a requirement that they have to meet. So we're going to share just a minute with you that they have to reside in the Everett, public schools boundaries. They also have to be 5 by August 31st, which means the state would allow them into kindergarten. They need to not currently be attending a quality preschool program. We do not want to take any children out of our community partners programs or our district programs. If they're being served, their needs are going to be met, they're going to be just fine. And then again, the need, academic, social, emotional, and or financial. So just to give you a little bit of background, this program was designed around the WAC 392, 335, 025, which talks about early entrance. Historically, in our district and most other districts, early entrance was about children who turn 5 after the uniform entry age for kindergarten. In Washington State, that's 5 by August 31st. So if a child turned 5 in September or October, the state gave us school districts the opportunity to come up with a plan and a process by which they could apply to go into kindergarten at 4 if they showed academic ability and skill sets to be able to be successful. So we have a whole process in Everett where parents apply, we assess those students, they're screened by a psychologist, the whole process goes through. We talk to their preschool teachers, we interview them in some cases, and then they are given a yes or no that they can move ahead in a preliminary opportunity or an opportunity for 30 days where the parent, principal, and teacher then gather after that time and have a conversation about whether or not the child is being successful. The really different thing about what we're talking about with transitional kindergarten was discovered by Bellingham School District about 6 years ago. They looked at the language in the WAC and identified that the language said that the child could come in early if they had ability, which is what we've all been talking about, or if they had need. And they redefined early as not 4 years old, but as early in the calendar year. So Bellingham, who called this Promise Kindergarten, it's based on their strategic plan of the Bellingham Promise, went ahead and started this program. They recruited students. They started them in January, the end of January. They ran their program through June, and they found that an additional 20 weeks of full-day kindergarten made all the difference in the world for these kids. They actually arrive, according to Bellingham's data, at kindergarten at the same level children do who have had a rich, high-quality preschool experience. So the data that Catherine shared would be totally different, right? Those kids wouldn't show up at kindergarten with TS Gold and Walk Kids data that says they're below benchmark in all those categories, but they'd be at benchmark, and we know, if they're at benchmark, they're going to be at benchmark in the SBA in third grade. So that's the background about it. In March of 2019, OSPI sent a letter, which you have in your packets, to Bellingham. After reviewing their program and having the superintendent and their early learning director present, they approved their program and said they could move ahead. What that means, of course, is these students are counted just like any other students in the system, and it's now funded by the state. And then following to that, in September, the statewide early learning newsletter came out, and they just completely publicly talked about this opportunity. They named it transitional kindergarten. They said it can go by any name, but it has to meet these requirements. And we took those requirements and started building the opportunity that we want to be presenting for our Everett families and their young children. So our next steps are to recruit students, and we'll do that by partnering with our community organizations, our agencies, our pediatricians. We can go to our wait list for ECAP students who aren't going to get in because they're not income eligible. We can go to our Child Find partners and identify students there that may have had some developmental delays, but they didn't qualify for developmental kindergarten. We can take them into preschool, we can take them into that program. We need to order materials and furniture. Our hope is to open classrooms in January at strategic locations in the district, but we will be meeting with facilities to find out where we have space, how we can serve those children. The plan is also to have 19 students in a classroom. So we need to have one certificated teacher with a strong early learning background and one classified paraeducator, full-time, both of them. And so the recruitment would happen in December. We would then schedule screenings for students who have been identified, confirm locations of the classrooms, develop transportation routes. We've spoken to food service, we've spoken to HR. This is a district-wide effort to meet the needs of these families whose children are not getting served in any high-quality way. In January, the plan then is to implement screenings and identify students. This is more of a screening in process than anything else because we've already gone through the whole process we have learned from our partners up north. And then we hire, provide staff training, and launch the program the last week of January. The goal is to have all of our classrooms full on the first Monday of February when we do our our second semester first day count. It is a really incredible opportunity, I think, to serve our kids in a way that we've never been able to figure out before. And districts all across the state are getting on this bandwagon. We want to get on first because we don't want there to be someone that says afterwards, oh gosh, we didn't intend to fund all these programs. Well, if our program is established and in place and we're showing that we have data that shows great success for our students and we turn around the experience that so many kids have when they come into kindergarten with no background, we think that will be a huge win for us. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have this great opportunity for full-day kindergarten in Everett and really across the state. We never really thought about the fact that many children are coming from no education experience or no group setting, and they go into not just a 2.5-hour kindergarten program like they used to do, but a full-day kindergarten program where they are there from first thing in the morning until the end of the day. And for some of them, it is just too much to handle with that kind of a sharp transition. And we have had classrooms where we've sent out our team, our coaches, our facilitators to come alongside teachers to help them with these kids who are really, they're 5, they're ready for kindergarten, but they haven't had the experiences they need. So the start is a much less positive experience and nothing like what we hope it would be. So we're excited, we hope you are too, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. That is exciting.
It is.
Yeah. It's like a little early holiday gift. Questions? Any directors?
I have a couple. This is so exciting. First off, I appreciate that information Dr. Matthews did, because, while kids is newer, I really didn't appreciate I understood it, but not appreciate the impact. And those numbers are so impressive. The difference is just really impressive. And the fact that, the foundation has supported a lot of our efforts for the past few years. So I'm just really, really impressed with this. I guess I just have one question. I have met people through the years who don't believe in preschool. They want their kids home until they go to kindergarten. Do we know how many of our kids are that? Just to know really what the barrier might be to get to those parents. I mean, not the parents that can't afford, but the parents that
make that choice.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a number of that, like what the number is of those kids.
I honestly don't know either. My own experience as both a kindergarten teacher and as an early learning director in more than one district, that many times those kids are having really rich experiences. They're out and about, they're at the library, they're doing maybe play and learn, our drop-in program, that's not a scheduled registration type program. They're often the kids they're at the zoo. They don't tend to have the gaps in my experience, but I do not know that from a really solid quantitative kind of position. But that would be interesting to know.
It would just be interesting just to see if there, if there are parents that maybe if there is a barrier for them understanding why this isn't, why it could be an opportunity for their kids.
Right. Well, if they qualified with these particular requirements, then they would certainly be welcome. But you're right, we might have to do some convincing.
And I just don't know what that number is or if it's necessary. But thank you. This is outstanding.
Director Lasing? I am excited about this program as well, because I believe that we need to continue to focus on how we can get the best resources necessary to bring all kids up. And if this will help those kids that are in the gap, or any child out there, be prepared for kindergarten, this is a wonderful thing. Will this affect Everett Ready program?
We have had some conversations, Peter and Chad and I, about Everett Ready. As you know, Everett Ready is funded largely by the foundation, and it was designed to get to these same kids.
Yeah.
Right? When I first came in the beginning of July, I went to all the schools that were running Everett Ready, and it's a great program. I mean, it was really powerful to see. But I have to tell you that some schools that had maybe in the fall were anticipating 100 kindergartners had 10 kindergartners in Everett Ready. The model and the nature of the program is just such that we weren't serving everybody who could have been served. We have a vision of offering the program to all incoming kindergartners. And that would mean we would need to change it. It couldn't be that, 10 children with one certificated teacher, but there are models in surrounding districts where paraeducators have been brought in and used that way. It's a 1-week program, not a 2-week program, and it's at every school for every child that's registered. And it's moved into August, closer to the start of the school, and it's for the same purpose that we're talking about with transitional kindergarten. The difference is transitional kindergarten is seeking out children who have gaps and have challenges that aren't being met. This would be come to your school, have experience on your campus, meet your teachers, meet other children. All teachers don't have to do it. We don't have to have a classroom teacher for every group of students. There are ways to work around that. So we're in the process of putting together the numbers and thinking about what we might be able to do. When I spoke with principals when I was going out to the schools in July, the one complaint that I heard, or the request that I heard, was that they wish all their kids could come. That they found it really difficult to say, well, you can come, but you can't, and you can, and you can't. And we're going after a high needs population there, and we don't have busing. So sometimes we ended up with kids whose parents were home and had the ability to get them to school for that morning segment. And transitional kindergarten will provide busing and all the other services that we offer. So Everett Ready could become that program that's just a really great transition into kindergarten for all students. There's some research that comes out of the University of Washington's P3 Executive Leadership Institute that talked about transitions being, it was important to have 7 touches with the new kindergartner in the family before they arrived at kindergarten. And if you that's everybody. That's optimum. That's the best way to start a brand new program and to go from, being a preschooler to being a kindergartner. And Everett Ready could be that for all kids. It would be 5 days. And that's a big deal, I think, for young children. And then we have opportunities like kindergarten nights that are done in the spring and individual school things that happen. And then at the beginning of the school year, we have the 3 days of family connections, and families get to sit down with their child and the teacher. We would start to be building a sort of structure that would meet the needs of many, many more kids if we could do that, I think.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I ask a backup question? Because of the Ever Ready, I have a friend that does Ever Ready at Jefferson, and it does EL. So she gets to meet those incoming kindergartners because she's the EL para. Will this transition have some EL in it also for those kids that need it?
I think that our goal would be to hire EL paras and people who have those skill sets so that we could meet the needs of those families. But how much nicer for our EL kids to come in and get familiar and comfortable. We could also include, I heard conversation about family engagement, and I think it's a great opportunity to have a family engagement experience. So when the children are in Everett Ready, their parents could be meeting and learning about the program and how they could get engaged, and asking all those questions they're worried about. My children have a friend on the playground. How do they get through the lunch line at school? How in the cafeteria? What happens if they're too tired to get through the whole day? Those are the real things kindergarten families are worried about at the beginning of the year, and we could meet those needs for them.
Okay, thank you very much. And Dr. Matthews, thank you for that data. It's certainly compelling as to the importance of kindergarten readiness.
Thank you very much.
So very exciting, very almost tangible excitement, yes. All right, let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. So we will reconvene at 6:45. That's a 17-minute break, but we'll do it anyway.
In homecoming choir? Oh.
Okay. Yes. Some of this you put that. I'll read it, and we'll just, or do you want to do that? Go for it.
Oh, Jim gave me those nice notes.
Oh, you got it, perfect, okay, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. We will reconvene and move on to section 13.02, approval of resolution 1220 to support passage of capital bond proposition number 1. Mr. Gunn, would you please present this agenda item?
I certainly can. Good evening and thank you. I wanted to thank you all for the work that you do every board meeting and many times in between, but especially for Director Andrews. This is the next to the last meeting of your tenure, and I wanted to just say thank you. I know tonight's election night, so there will be a change coming. And
yes.
Wanted to thank you. So the purpose of the agenda item tonight is to request your consideration and approval of resolution number 1220 to express your support for the passage of the bond proposition number 1 for the April 28th special election ballot in the amount of how much? $317.4 million. Part of the resolution, the RCW requires that to approve such a resolution, the board has to hold a public hearing that would give members of the public as well as board members an equal opportunity to express opposing views to the resolution. So part of tonight's program will be to have you actually hold that public hearing. I will just briefly remind you of the scope of the capital bond. We're adding 36 new elementary classrooms at 8 schools, replacing 3 elementary schools, modernizing and upgrading schools, school facilities at our 3 high schools, and then doing a variety of other system upgrades, HVAC projects, roofing and flooring systems, and then improving safety and security at schools throughout the district, and then doing some site upgrades as well as technology improvements throughout the district. Again, a total of $317.4 million. With that brief review of the scope of the bond proposal, I would ask that you consider approving the resolution in support of the bond proposition, and that you first hold a public hearing allowing the community and board members an equal opportunity to express opposing views. That's my presentation tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Sure, go ahead with questions and then we'll open for a public hearing after that.
I just have it's a fairly insignificant question, but this is the first time that I've seen it, I think, as Proposition 1. Is that something that's determined by the school district, or is that something that's determined by the auditor's office, what proposition number it will be?
That's something that's determined in the board resolution, the bond resolution. Normally, we have either 1 or 2 propositions. When we have a levy, could have 2 levies, actually. So in the bond resolution that you passed, it established that this would be proposition number 1 on that special election ballot.
Like if we had a levy, it would be 1. If we had a capital levy, it would be 2. And if we had a bond, it would be 3.
Very
typically?
likely. It's
Okay.
whatever we identified in the bond resolution. Normally, we do an educational programs and operations levy as proposition 1, and proposition 2 is the bond resolution, bond proposition.
And then would any other entities in a voting district have propositions? And so they would just be Proposition 1 for the fire district kind of thing? It
Yes,
would, and
that's
that would
right.
be voted on when they do their resolution or or however they do it?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
I'm thinking, because that's how they put out their signs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Is it possible that during this election in April, there will be other people on the ballot as well, or will it just be the school districts?
It's very possible that there could be other propositions on the ballot. At this time, I'm not aware of any. It's likely that there would be fewer on an April ballot than there would be on February. Yes.
Okay. So we will open the public hearing, give community members an opportunity to comment. Board members will have an opportunity to comment. We'll close the public hearing and then call for the motion. So the public hearing on the proposed resolution is now open. Are there any members of the public present this evening that would like to express their views? No comment cards turned in or anything? Okay. We will ask, we'll now open it for comments from the board. Any directors like to comment? In support? Okay.
I would like to make a statement if I may. I think it's a very good opportunity for the district to move ahead with modernizing the facilities that we currently have, as well as to impress upon our community the need for career and technical educations and the opportunities we have for making those types of programs available during this bond. It's important that we continue to provide every opportunity for our students and every opportunity for the community to know that we are helping prepare our students for their future.
And I do appreciate this opportunity while we serve the district and we do advocate, but that we can specifically advocate for this funding, which I think is important for who we serve.
And I would just add, I think that the presentation we had tonight was quite timely in the bond that we are putting out to voters, in that we looked at college-going statistics, but there's a lot of students who aren't going to college. And this bond in particular provides career pathways for many students. Now, the challenge has become that a lot of even STEM-type jobs and vocational jobs require additional education, but there's just so many different ways to get at that. And this is one of those where we really are giving our students a leg up on those career opportunities, those high-demand careers through these pathway programs, and really giving them experience in the high school before they move on, and exposing them to careers, as they mentioned earlier tonight, what that might look like for them. So I think it's, again, I could reiterate what a really thorough job the committee, the bond planning committee did throughout the year. We've said it many times, but they really did put forward, I think, best effort.
Thank you. You make a great point. I also am impressed with this package in that the addition of classrooms at schools versus building a brand new elementary school is so cost effective and economical that I think it's really value for our taxpayer dollars to be able to take that approach. And I don't think we've ever really mentioned this, but a few years ago, the board made a recommendation that we would start financing playground equipment at schools rather than leave it up to the PTAs, and some of the inequities that created. And this package has some dollars allocated to replacing playground equipment. So that's a benefit as well. So any other comments? We will close the public hearing, and I will call for a motion to approve resolution. Let me find it. A motion to approve resolution number 1220 to support passage of capital bond proposition number 1 in the amount of $317,400,000 and the April 28th, 2020 ballot.
Second.
Been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mitchell. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to 13.03, Policy 2100, Educational Opportunities for Military Children. First reading.
Well, good evening. Revisions to Policy 2100, Educational Opportunities for Military Children, are provided this evening to comply with recent changes to Chapter 28A to 25 RCW regarding compulsory school attendance, where a student having an active duty military parent guardian who is being transferred or pending a duty transfer can be admitted to school on a conditional basis. By conditional meaning not proof of residence or permanent residence. After such conditional enrollment, if a student the parent guardian must provide proof of residence in the district within 14 days of their arrival date. So that gives them some time to get settled. The law changes also require that districts enroll students in a specific school, program, or course as needed to minimize any disadvantage from having an active duty parent in the military. Tonight's proposed revisions to this policy also include changing the title from Educational Opportunities for Military Children to Educational Opportunities for Students with a Parent Legal Guardian in the Military. The proposed revisions to Policy 2100, Educational Opportunities for Military Children, have been reviewed by legal counsel and Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the policy revisions or the policy? Okay, we'll move it for second reading. Move it to next meeting for second reading.
Thank you.
13.04, Policy 2410, High School Graduation Requirements, a mere 21-page policy.
Well, this seems to be a yearly event for the board. Revisions to Policy 2410, High School Graduation Requirements, are provided for your consideration to comply with House Bill 1599, which changes the graduation framework by the delinking of statewide assessment from graduation. Other revisions to this policy include establishing options for graduation pathways, modifying the requirements of credits and credit waivers, and retooling of the high school and beyond plans. The proposed revisions to Policy 2410, High School Graduation Requirements, have been reviewed by legal counsel and Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this policy revision?
I just have one thing to clarify. So that the classes of 19, 18, 17, 16 are for our students that can stay until they're 21?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And as you point out, when they age out, then they fall out of
That year falls
the
off?
policy. Yeah.
Thank you, because we're adding a year at the top. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work on this policy. That's very, very detailed.
Yeah, it was a team effort for sure.
Yes. Yes. Okay. No comments, so we'll move this to next meeting for second reading. And moving on to section 14.0, upcoming agenda items. Dr. Salzman.
At the November 7th special meeting, the board will have a study session on the superintendent's evaluation. The regular meeting on November 19th, We'll discuss the following: Next Generation Science Standards Readiness Report, several policy reviews for first and second readings, fourth quarter financial report, the August financial reports, 2019-22 fiscal outlook, legislative priorities, and the Northwest School of Innovation Learning Fairfax contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Section 15.0, executive session. We will hold an executive session this evening. So from time to time, the Board of Directors will hold an executive session for purpose authorized by the Open Public Meetings Act. Tonight, we will hold an executive session to discuss pending litigation. The session is expected to last or to conclude within 30 minutes, and no final action will be taken during the executive session.
I just wasn't sure if maybe the thermostat hadn't been adjusted for daylight savings time ending, standard time.
All right, we will reconvene in open session. The next order of business is agenda item 16.01, approval of First Amendment to ground lease with Housing Hope Properties. Sorry. Mr. Gunn, would you please present this agenda item?
I sure will. Tonight, we are asking for your approval of the First Amendment to the ground lease with Housing Hope Properties and your authorization for the superintendent to sign the agreement as well. This amendment clarifies the terms of the original ground lease agreement to indicate that the multifamily apartment complex contemplated in the original agreement will be reviewed under the State Environmental Protection Act prior to the commencement date of the lease. We recognize that we have received community comments and concerns about the process leading up to the original agreement and acknowledge some questions and concerns of the community. We have always anticipated that a SEPA review would occur, and that this amendment is being recommended to you to specifically address the review process and to make it more clear that such a process will occur prior to the commencement date. So, at this time, I ask that you consider approving the First Amendment to the ground lease.
Thank you. Is there a motion? The recommended action is to approve and authorize the superintendent to sign the First Amendment to the ground lease with Housing Hope Property.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Lassane to approve the recommended action. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward with the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Amendment is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our November 5th meeting. Meeting is adjourned.
We didn't get off too much.